It's been a minute, hasn't it? I launched Project Hailstorm over 6 months ago now, and the response has honestly been fantastic. Nearly 25,000 people have actually played it, which is incredible. I only made it as a passion project, and I'm really grateful for everyone who's taken time out of their day to sit down and play it. Now, don't get me wrong. There are definitely some flaws with it, and a few bugs here and there, but I don't think there's anything that truly destroys the final vision of the game. Some of the bugs I was aware of before I even launched the game, they're silly things like falling through the floor, being able to grab the light in the tunnel section, and a bunch of other inconsistencies like menu items being flipped or just not working at all. With that said, let's do a little post-mortem. Normally I wouldn't do a post-mortem as I'm generally quite aware of these issues after the fact, and I internalize them and keep them in mind for my next projects. But for the audience, I think it's fun to see this process. Having let the game simmer for a few months and allowing feedback to build up, some of the biggest criticisms of the game is that it was too short, a bit graphically intense, that the story was a bit lacking, and that gameplay wise, well, there wasn't any. Let's take a look at each of those, shall we? This is something I have a fairly conflicting opinion on. On the one hand, you're absolutely right, the game is barely 13 minutes long. I could have spent a bit more time making the sections longer, making the puzzles harder, and making the way you move through everything a bit more involved. These were all considerations I had throughout the project, but I knew in my head I couldn't spend too long on it, as I would have run out of time and money if I didn't scope my ambitions way down. My counter-argument. And I do believe that creatives should be allowed to argue in favour of why they made their work, is that I've never seen animated shorts or films get flack for being too short. Video games are given the expectation that they need to take up a significant portion of your time, and I personally don't believe that. If a game is longer than 4 hours, it's honestly quite unlikely that I will find the time to finish it. I'm happy with Hailstorm's length. It means that absolutely everyone that plays it can experience it in its entirety. However, I would like to make more of it. Number 2 is Graphical Intensity. This one's a tricky one. The game does run on some low-end hardware, including the Steam Deck, but the long short is that the game is still a bit laggy. Unreal 5 is a very performance-intensive software, and I believe I could look into ways to make it run faster. There's no excuses here, though I did try my best. I don't believe that software is the issue. This is solely a skill issue, and weird Patrick Bateman impersonators that think they know better than actual developers are wrong. You can quote me on that. You know why? Because I've actually released a video game. Number 3 is lack of story. Truth be told, this is something that I struggled with before, during, and after production. The story wasn't really set up properly throughout the whole thing, and it sort of just happens. The ending is weak, and it doesn't really answer anything. If I had more time and a clearer outlook from the beginning, this is definitely something I could improve. I do think the universe that it takes place in is super original, and the set design, locations, and concept have some incredible potential. If I was to revisit this, I do think I could make some seriously amazing stuff with the world it takes place in. Number 4 is gameplay, or the lack of it. This piece of feedback cuts deep because I knew the entire time I was developing Hailstorm that the gameplay and movement were really shit. Movement is sluggish, and nothing you do in the world really feels that involved. You move from one set piece to another doing some preschool level puzzles until you get eaten by a scary cube. If I was to improve this, the first thing I would do is immediately increase the walking speed of the main character. Beyond that, making the way you move through the world make more sense diegetically and having the spaces feel more lived in. There was a set path you had to take, and the environments really didn't deviate from that. I would have liked to have added some kind of threat that the player had to avoid, but I wouldn't consider adding combat. I think we have enough games where the way you interact with the world is by inflicting harm. I don't think we need another. Let's take a look at some positives though. I do think that the cinematic aspects of the game were a real treat. The light breaking and spilling into the caves, the tension in the decontamination chamber and the elevator sequence were all really fun, and I think are what gave the game a special feeling. I think focusing on these cinematic elements could yield some more engaging moments. With all that said, I think the vast majority of critiques are completely valid. and I appreciate the negative comments just as much as the positive ones. Mostly. Moving forward, I hope I can improve upon those shortcomings and make something better, while using the things I did do right, such as mood, atmosphere, and visuals, to further elevate the final result. Let's move on, shall we? After launching Hailstorm, I honestly didn't have any plans to do much else with it. I briefly tried pitching it to investors, without much luck, though I did get some kind words from New Blood Interactive. My personal opinion is that 1. My game isn't impressive enough to generate millions in profits, 2. I've not made any other games, and 3. AI is hoovering up any and all funding right now. That said, I'm happy with where Hailstorm lies, and I'm going to leave it there for the foreseeable future. To everyone who watched my making of, played Hailstorm, or left a review, good and bad, I want to say from the bottom of my heart, thank you. Making Hailstorm did a lot of things for me. It opened doors at a lot of very prestigious companies, and it really pushed me to my next step in my career. However, one huge negative it did for me was that it has literally bankrupted me. No, don't worry. I would like to say that I'm in somewhat of a more stable position right now. But the thing is, projects like Hailstorm cost an invisible amount of money. On paper, it technically cost over £25,000 to make this game, just in labour alone. Moving forward, I'd like to move to a more sustainable way of producing projects like this. I'd like to make this my full-time job so I can entertain all of you, as well as make high-quality games and artwork for people like you to enjoy. The best way for you to currently support me is by subscribing here and sharing it with your friends. Also, if you're a game developer like myself, I've put up a few of the assets from Hailstorm, as well as a fully drivable version of the Snowcat, for sale on the Fab Marketplace. If you want to directly support me, that's the best way you can do it. One more thing. All of my artwork will now until forever be AI free. If you want to support authenticity and stand behind creators who are still making things the right way, this is one way to do it. I believe that AI is generally horseshit, and I stand behind the idea that true creation comes from individuals, not from prompting something. If you believe that too, then supporting artists like myself helps uphold that. Wow. So, what's next? The next game I'm making is called What Lies Within the Ivory Tower. Part cinematic short, part game, Wulute puts players in the shoes of a cargo jockey aboard the US CV Caldera as they're just passing by Saturn. The ship is diverted by a distress beacon to a privately owned research facility on Titan. Players go on an increasingly dangerous journey to find out just what lies within the Ivory Tower. So far, I'm in early pre-production. I'm currently aiming to create a short cinematic to lay the foundations of the project style, as well as build a catalogue of assets and establish the world that Ivory Tower takes place in. After the cinematic's done, I'll be using the momentum behind it to build a 3+ hour long game with the visuals of Hailstorm, but with more gameplay. Think mid-century modern, think brutalism, think analog, think cigarette futurism. I want to craft a world so beautifully in depth that the term cigarette futurism becomes a new genre-defining style. Anyway, with all that said and done, I've currently produced a fair amount of art and mechanics. I'm working on cementing both of them so I can start creating levels, testing the game, showcasing it, and building momentum behind it. There isn't a Steam page up yet, as I don't quite have enough content to do that, but the world is being built and it's coming together quite quickly. In the background is some of the footage from the game and the cinematic. I kind of burnt out for producing art after Hailstorm, but in the new year I found some energy to start producing visuals for the game, and I really think I'm onto something. A sprawling, brutalist facility that looks like a dead mall fuck the Barbican is the real driving aesthetic for the game, and I believe that that's starting to take shape. Mechanically, the concept is stay in the light, and I want to use that to take the player on a journey, mixing light puzzles with some moments of tension, all threaded together with a story that leaves a lasting impression. If you like what you see, stay tuned, as once everything's in a good spot and the cinematic is finished, I'll be dropping them all at once alongside a development blog here and a Steam page. Again, thank you so much for watching, and hopefully I'll see you in a few months.